What's up guys, my name is Lauren and welcome back to my channel. Recently on my Instagram I asked you guys what are some financial concepts that you feel like you should know or understand but you don't and you're kind of embarrassed that you don't, and that I would answer as many questions as I could in a video, and that is this video. And I'm going to try to keep my answers to these questions as simple as possible. This is not going to be like a deep dive into any of these concepts, but just give you enough information that when you hear about it, you're like, oh, I know what that is. Okay, first of all, you talk about your high yield savings account. How do I know if my savings account is high yield? This is a great question. I have a high yield savings account that we keep most of our emergency fund in and some other savings we have from the sale of our home that's going to be for a future down payment. And Miles is now joining us. And it's a great place to park money because a high yield savings account earns you more interest than your average savings account, but has no downside of potential of losing interest. Like you can't lose money in a high yield savings account because it's still a savings account. So how do you know if it's high yield? You need to look at your statement and see what the interest rate is. So right now, as of August 2023, when I'm recording this, high yield savings accounts are paying at least 4%, generally, like give or take, but mine I think right now is 4.5%, and it fluctuates depending on what interest rates are doing. But if the interest rate on your savings account is like 0.5% or 0.2%, it's not a high yield savings account, versus if it has like 3.5%, 4%, 4.5%, or more, then it is a high yield savings account. Just as a note, a lot of the high yield savings accounts are online only banks, and that's how they're able to afford to have those types of accounts, is because they're saving money on the cost of a brick and mortar bank and passing those savings on to the consumer, or at least that's how they like market it. But either way, I love high yield savings accounts. Check your statement to see if you have one, and if you don't, open one up. I will put a link below for, I think it's NerdWallet. It has a good comparison of like the high yield savings accounts right now with the best interest rates. So check the video description if you want to check that out. Okay, I know I'm supposed to be investing, but like how do you actually do it? And what am I investing in? Do I need to research different stocks and companies? It's all so overwhelming. So I totally get this. It does really seem overwhelming, and I feel like the financial news makes it more overwhelming than it needs to be. Like they overcomplicate things on purpose. So my short answer is you need to educate yourself, and I have a favorite book that I've talked about for years on my channel. It's called The Simple Path to Wealth. I will have it linked to the video description. It is written by somebody who's very well respected in the personal finance community, and he originally wrote it as like a series of letters to his daughter with everything he'd want her to know about investing, and it was eventually published into a book and has gained a lot of popularity since it was published. It is a practical approach to just everything you need to know about investing, all the basics. So I definitely recommend checking out that book. In that book, he makes a lot of suggestions, and I'm going to take this answer one step further, even though I said I know I'm not going to get too deep into any of these things. But rather than just saying like, get this book, I'm going to give you like some of the top tips from the book. So obviously this is not financial advice. This is some of the top tips that I read from this book, and you can read it and make your own decisions from there. And to summarize these tips, I'm actually going to take some slides from a section of my debt payoff course and just have a visual for you guys to look at. So in general, when you're investing, there's 3 things you need to do. You need to pick a brokerage, you need to pick an account type, and you need to pick the investments. So the brokerage would be something like Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, something like that. Then from there, you need to pick an account type. So like a Roth IRA, a 529 would be like if you're investing for your children's education, just a regular brokerage account, something like that. If you have a 401k through work, your employer will have already chosen the brokerage because that's where they've decided to like host your 401k. But if you're opening something like a Roth IRA, which is one of my favorite accounts to invest in, it would be something where you could choose where to open that account. And then finally, you need to pick the investments. So an example of some investments that exist are index funds. There's also single stocks. There's also target date retirement funds. So that's kind of like the 3 layers of investing. So let's just use my first investment account as an example here. I chose Vanguard as my brokerage. I chose Roth IRA as my account. And then when I put money into the account, the investment that I chose was a target date retirement index fund. And the great thing about target date retirement funds is they adjust the investments for you as you get older and make it appropriate, like an appropriate balance for as you approach retirement. And the great thing about index funds is they're very low cost, and you basically own like almost all the stocks in the stock market, but like a very small portion. So you asked like, okay, do I need to look at like Apple or Disney and see how they're performing? You can do that. You can buy single stocks, but that would be like if you're in the fruit section of the grocery store and you buy a bunch of strawberries, but you don't buy watermelons or pineapples or kiwis or anything. You just choose strawberries. Whereas index funds, you get a little bit of everything, and it's at a price that the average person can afford because you're just owning a small segment of a stock. So just to go back for a second to that 3 steps of investing, just to give you one more analogy to make it make sense a little more. So if you're going shopping for something, let's say you're pulling up to a shopping plaza, and choosing which shopping plaza you're going to is like choosing your brokerage. So Fidelity, Vanguard, etc. Then when you choose your account type, that's like actually going into the store. So, you know, opening your Roth IRA is like going into the grocery store, let's say. And then when you choose the investments, that is like your items purchased in the store. So you bring your wallet into the grocery store. It doesn't mean you've bought anything. You actually have to pick out what you want to buy and then, you know, pay for it and take it with you. And so that last step of investing, I think, is where a lot of people get tripped up. Is they open an account, they put money in it, but then they don't take the next step to invest the funds because either they don't know they're supposed to do that or they don't know what to invest in. So it's really important to actually take that next step, use the money in your wallet to actually purchase something so you are invested within that account and that money can grow. And like I said, you know, index funds are great because they're low cost and you own a little bit of everything. Some popular index funds that are listed in that book that I mentioned, The Simple Path to Wealth, are VTSAX, VTI, and VT. Those are just broad index funds. And then if you want to invest in like target date retirement funds, you can just search, if your account is at Vanguard, for example, Vanguard target date retirement fund, and then the approximate date you're going to retire. I think it goes by like every 5 years. So you can put like 2060 or whatever, and it will come up with the ticker symbol. And then when you go to invest in your IRA, it'll be usually like a 3 to 5 letters for the symbol. You just search for that symbol and make sure you invest your dollars in that target date retirement fund. So that answer was a little bit on the longer side, but I feel like that was necessary to really answer the question. So this question is related to the last one. I want to start investing, but I'm not sure which company to go to for the best results. So there's 2 considerations here. One, is the company charging you fees? What sort of fees do they charge? Are they a low fee or no fee brokerage? And then like, what are you actually investing in? Because you could open an account at Fidelity and Vanguard and invest in essentially the identical products. So I wouldn't say so much to worry about like which brokerage you're picking. If you're picking one of the tried and true ones like Fidelity or Vanguard, or whichever other one you research and decide is right for you, I would focus more on what you're actually invested in. And for best results, study after study has shown that index funds are some of the best performing funds on the market. So again, I would say take a look at that book, The Simple Path to Wealth, to learn more about index funds. Continuing on the investing topic, how does invested money compound? Like, the gains aren't actually real until you cash out, right? So this is really interesting. So if you own 1 share of VTSAX, which is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, you own 1 share, which it's trading at, let me look right now. So right now, at the time that I'm filming this video, 1 share of VTSAX is $108.45. So you invest in VTSAX, you put in $108.45, which you don't necessarily put that exact amount, but I'm just using this as an example. And then the stock market goes up. So 1 share is worth $118.45. So you only paid $108 for it, but now it's worth $118. And that difference is called a capital gain. And you don't realize your capital gains, aka they don't become real until you actually cash out the money out of the account. So typically you don't owe taxes on capital gains until you actually cash them out, because just like it went up, it can go back down and go down even further. And the next week that share could be worth $98. And if you cashed it out, you would have a loss. So you're right that you don't realize the gains on your investments until you actually cash them out of the account. There's dividends, and that's taxed differently, but just to make things simple, the most growth you usually see is through capital gains. And the way it compounds is not like you would traditionally think about exactly in a savings account where you're getting a certain percentage back consistently. It's just whatever percent the stock market grows, that's how much your investments grow, because the shares of stock, the price goes up and up and up. And so obviously, like if there's a certain percentage average return that you get in the stock market, the more money that's invested, the more growth you're going to see. So that's really the power of compound interest that they talk about in stock market investing, is that just, the more you have in there, the more it grows, and then it grows on itself. So if you start out with $100 in the stock market and it goes up by 10%, you have $110. But then eventually you have $1,000 in the stock market, and that year it goes up 10% and you gain $100. So that's what compound interest looks like when it comes to like investing in stocks. But the moral of the story is just invest as often and consistently as you can over a long period of time, and you will grow wealth. Best type of account to keep down payment savings, especially if you're 3+ years out. So, everyone has their own way of doing things, but historically, like the go-to strategy on this that different people have cited over the years is, if you need the money within the next 5 years, do not invest it in the stock market. So whether that means putting it in a high yield savings account, putting it in a CD that maybe you could get a little higher rate, but your money's locked up for like 12 or 18 months or something like that, those could be good options. But generally, it's not recommended to invest it if you need it in the next 5 years. But some people may want to be a little more aggressive and invest half their money and then keep the other half in savings. So it's totally up to you, but we personally have money that we're using for a down payment in the next probably 2 years, and it is in a high yield savings account. Setting up a will and trust. Okay, so as a former estate planning attorney, which I am if you guys didn't know, I would say go to an estate planning attorney. It's honestly not as expensive as you may think to do this, especially if you don't have a lot of assets or don't own a business or don't have other complicated family dynamics. It can be really in the range of $750 to $1,500, I would say, depending on if you are just doing it for you or you and a spouse or something like that, and also depends where geographically you are. But I would just go see an estate planning attorney. Most estate planning attorneys will do a free consultation, and then they give you a recommendation and let you know a flat fee for what it'll be. They'll draft everything up, and an estate planning attorney is an expert in this. I would say the online DIY things, it's better than nothing, but rather than spending a couple hundred on a DIY thing, just go do it right and do it once, and you should be set for a while, unless you have another kid or you get divorced or you come into a lot of money. You really don't need to update your documents that often, so you should be good for at least 5, but probably 10+ years. So I would just say go to an attorney. They'll explain everything to you. They'll know everything that's specific to your state. That's what they're there for. Go to an attorney who knows what they're doing in that area. Okay, what is cryptocurrency and what is the point of it? I couldn't really fully tell you. I don't invest in crypto. I think we saw the rise of crypto and the fall of crypto. I think it's yet to be seen what it even is. I mean, it's essentially digital currency, right? But I don't understand how you can mine a Bitcoin, and there's a certain number that exists, and you do work on the computer with code or something, and you can find Bitcoin. I don't even know what that means. So I don't really know. I'm not too worried about it. I feel like my strategy is that I invest in index funds that like I said, own a large segment of the market. And if companies are at the place where they are including crypto investments as part of their strategy, and let's say you own, in the index fund, there's Twitter, and Twitter owns Bitcoin, then you're essentially invested in crypto by being invested in an index fund, because other companies that you own within the index fund are invested in that way, if that makes sense. So one of the investing strategies I've heard over time is, if you don't understand it, don't invest in it. And I don't understand it. I don't think that enough people understand it for it to be something to be worth figuring out. Sure, maybe you could figure something out with it and invest in something that ends up being worth a lot, and in hindsight you'll be like, oh, I wish I invested in that earlier. But that's not what long-term investing is about. It's about doing what we know works and consistently over time, and that is a guarantee of growing wealth versus figuring out what these other new emerging things are. If you do want to invest in something that's more new or volatile, putting 5 to 10% of your portfolio, that's kind of the range that you hear thrown around, is okay to do kind of speculative things. And with 95% of your money, you do what you know works and stick with that. So I don't know that I really answered the question, but hopefully that helps you figure out how you want to go about your approach to crypto. 529s. What are 529s? 529s are college savings accounts. It's actually not for college only. It's an education savings account that you can put together for your child. It's actually usually in your name, and then you name a beneficiary on it. So like I have one for each of my daughters and I own them, but they're named as beneficiaries. And you can put money in there and it grows tax free and can be withdrawn for educational expenses. There's a whole list of things that you can use it for. It's not just for like paying college tuition. You can use it, I think, for private school and books and other education related supplies and expenses, but it has to be used for education. Although they did pass something recently that said, believe it started in 2025, if the beneficiary on the account has been the same for a number of years. I believe it's 15 years. I'll have to put an article in the description that talks about this, but and the money isn't needed for education, then you can roll over up to $35,000 into a Roth IRA. So basically they're saying if you don't need all the money in the 529 for education, but you want to move it into a Roth IRA for your kid, you can do that with part of it. So anyway, it's a cool account. I have one for each of my daughters. It doesn't have to be just used for college. Like I said, it can be used for trade school. It can be used for a variety of different educational expenses. So I think they're a great account to have if you have a kid. College hopefully won't be as expensive when my kids, who are 1 and 4, are of college age, but I don't know. So I'm planning for the worst and hoping for the best. Recommendations when getting a new car loan. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have heard of the Money Guy Show, but it's a podcast that I listen to all the time. It's 2 guys in Tennessee, and I really like their approach. They've got the Financial Order of Operations, which is kind of like a better version of Dave Ramsey's Baby Steps, or at least I think it's a better version. They have a great suggestion that I really like, and it's called 23/8. So they say if you're buying a new car, you need to put down 20%. You can't finance it for more than 3 years, and whatever the payment is going to be shouldn't be more than 8% of your, I forget if it's gross or net income. I think it's gross income. So when you're buying the car, you can do the calculation, okay, what is 8% of my income? That's how much my maximum payment can be. And then you can work backwards into how much you can spend on a car based on your income. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but this is just a way that kind of ensures you don't buy on a car, because a car is a depreciating asset, right? When you invest in the stock market or even when you invest in real estate, those assets usually go up, whereas the value of a car just goes down. So to keep yourself in a position where you're not spending too much of your income on an asset that's just going to go down in value, this is the strategy they come up with, and I really like it. So again, it's 20% down. You can't finance it for more than 3 years, and for that 3 years of financing, your payment shouldn't be more than 8% of your income. So do with that what you will, but I think that's kind of a good baseline to start thinking about things from. Some people are totally against the idea of taking out a loan for a car at all, but I took out a loan for my car. I think it's very hard, especially these days with car prices, to save up enough cash up front for a car. So I think it's totally okay to do a loan, and but you want to just make sure you don't like overcommit to how much you're spending. Okay, next. Sounds dumb, but sinking funds. Do you have separate accounts at your bank for each one? That's actually a great question, and I do not have separate accounts for each sinking fund. That's why in my budget spreadsheet, I have it all itemized out, because all of that money is sitting in one lump sum in my checking account, and so that way I can track it separately on the spreadsheet, but I don't have to have like 10 bank accounts for each sinking fund, because I have a lot of sinking funds. All right, and this is going to be the last question. For an HSA, how does it work when you leave an old employer? So an HSA is a health savings account, and the great thing about HSAs is it's money that is yours. Unlike an FSA, which is a flex spending account, that's like use it or lose it money. If you don't spend it by the end of the year, you lose it, with the exception of maybe a small rollover that you get. But for a health savings account, that is your money. It has great tax advantages because it goes in with pre-tax income, it grows tax-free, and then when you withdraw it, you don't have to pay any tax as long as you're using for medical expenses. There is the requirement that you have a high deductible health plan, so not everyone's eligible for an HSA. And then on top of that, some employers offer HSAs and maybe have like some sort of match where they contribute an amount to the HSA. So HSAs are a really cool account, and like I said, that is your money. So if you left an old employer and you had money in a 401k, you would definitely want to roll that over. Same thing with an HSA. You want to roll that money over into a new HSA, whether it's at your new employer or you open like your own HSA. Like we have one at Fidelity. I just opened an HSA when we had a high deductible health plan and could contribute to it. So you can pick, where you want to open a new one. roll that money over, definitely don't forget it and leave it there because it's your money. So talk to your HR, do some research on where you might be able to open an HSA that would work for you and get that money. So that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video going over all these great questions. Like, these are things that we are not taught in school and are kind of complicated, but totally like accessible things to the average person. We just need the opportunity to be educated. So in this video, I hope I explained at least one concept that you weren't familiar with before and you feel just a little bit more empowered as you go forward in your financial life. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.